What's up, everyone? So if you watched our previous videos on Auxbeam's pod lights, you know how enthusiastic we are about our build's light setup. And today we're talking about the Auxbeam V-Ultra 7-inch amber side shooter pod lights. Now, this is a prominent name, especially when it comes to budget-friendly options that claim to rival the big names. We aren't just looking for raw brightness here. We're looking for how usable that light actually is when you're crawling through uneven terrain at 2 a.m. There's a fine line between a tool that helps you see and a gadget that just creates glare. And today, we're going to see exactly where these V-Ultras fall on that spectrum. We'll put the updated price and purchase links down in the description below for your convenience. Subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get started. Right off the bat, we have to talk about the sheer physical presence of these things. At 7 inches, these aren't your typical ditch lights. They are massive. When we pulled them out of the box, which, credit to Auxbeam, was packed with a "You Are Important" card and enough foam to survive a drop from a cliff, the first thing we noticed was the build quality. The housing is a heavy aluminum alloy with deep cooling fins that actually feel like they can dissipate the heat of a 226-watt set. For a rig like ours, these lights look planted and purpose-built on the bull bar. They definitely look more aggressive than the 3-inch or 5-inch versions, and honestly, if you have a full-sized truck or a built-out SUV, the scale just works. To us, the weight is a good sign. It doesn't feel like a cheap plastic shell that's going to vibrate itself to pieces on the first washboard road. Now let's get into the mounting and wiring, because this is where a lot of budget lights usually fail the test. The brackets included are surprisingly sturdy. Once we got them dialed in on the bull bar and tightened the hardware, there was zero play. No wobble, no flex. They just sit cleanly. The wiring harness is a total plug-and-play setup, which honestly matters more than most people admit. We're not fans of cutting and splicing into factory looms when we're juggling a dozen other projects on the rig. The connectors feel solid, and the cable length is generous enough that we didn't have to get creative with our routing. We tucked the dual switch panel right where it's easy to reach, but won't get bumped accidentally. This setup gives you 2 separate buttons, one for the main amber light and one for the daytime running lights, DRLs. Having that independent control is a huge win in our book, because it means you aren't locked into blind everyone mode just because you want a bit of amber presence during a cloudy day. Speaking of the DRLs, let's talk about the daytime look. On our older vehicle, which didn't come with modern lighting from the factory, these amber DRLs add a very clean, purposeful look. It isn't blinding or obnoxious, but it's definitely noticeable enough to act as a safety feature. It adds a bit of modern rig flair without trying too hard. But let's be real, you don't buy 7-inch side shooters just for the DRLs, you buy them for the night, and that is where our critique gets a bit more technical. When we flipped the main amber lights on for the first time in pitch-black conditions, the coverage was the first thing that hit us. The V-Ultra uses a combination of a spot/hyper beam and those signature side shooter elements. This is where the genius of the design either works or it doesn't. In this case, it actually works. Instead of a narrow tunnel of light that leaves you blind to what's happening at the edges of the trail, these side shooters fill in the periphery beautifully. We noticed a clear difference on both sides of the truck compared to our stock headlights. It isn't just brightness for the sake of it, it's actual coverage. This is the kind of light that helps you spot a dip or an animal on the shoulder before it becomes an emergency. In our current setup, we're running these V-Ultras alongside our XP Ultra Pods. To us, this is the Dream Team configuration. The XP Ultras act as the long-range spotlights, while the V-Ultras provide the wide-angle flood that keeps us aware of our immediate surroundings. However, no piece of gear is perfect. While the amber color is fantastic for reducing eye fatigue and cutting through dust or light fog, you have to be careful with your aiming. Because these are so large and powerful, rated at roughly 26,800 lumens for the set, they can easily overwhelm your foreground if you aim them too low. You want that light throwing out and wide, not just bouncing off your hood or the dirt 5 feet in front of your bumper. Also, while the IP68 rating gives us confidence against rain and dust, we'll be keeping an eye on the seals over the next few months of heavy use. For now, they've survived everything we've thrown at them, but as with any light in this price bracket, the long-term durability of the lens coating is always the big question. So, should you actually get these side shooter pod lights? In our opinion, if you're looking for a massive upgrade in trail awareness without spending premium brand money, the answer is a solid yes. The Auxbeam V-Ultra 7-inch pods deliver usable, high-quality light that actually translates to a safer driving experience. They don't just look cool on the bull bar, they solve the problem of off-road blind spots. The side shooter design is a legitimate game changer for tight trails, and the DRL switch adds a level of versatility we really appreciate. You're getting a solid aluminum build, a hassle-free install, and a beam pattern that actually makes sense for real-world driving. So yeah, that was pretty much everything we found after putting them through the paces. They inspire confidence, they stay locked in place even when we're hitting washouts at speed, and they look great doing it. We'll put the updated price and purchase link down in the description for your convenience. Subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss our long-term durability update. Other than that, we hope you all have a nice day. Peace.